in peloton, and he's going to be an important part for Valverde to get back in there. But with the advantage, 25 seconds for the leading group here, it's going to be difficult for Valverde once again. And we've seen it in the past with Valverde in the Vuelta in the last number of years as well, having mechanical problems, losing that minute and a half. Is he going to lose some time here today?
Well, it's on the cards, most certainly. I think once they get absorbed, and it looks like it might well happen into the group containing Marcel Kittel, 3 times already adding up with Palmares. In fact, I was looking at how many sprint possibilities remain. Yes, what remains for Valverde today? A whole plate of pain, I'm afraid, and he's taking bites out of that right now. Look at it. Grey of pallor, and believe me, that is not sunblock today. He is just so exhausted by this, and it's come with still 79.4 kilometers to go. It's going to be a big day. He's going to know all about it. And now the report is 40 seconds for the Kittel group, so they're riding on, and it looks like they may well catch the group containing Valverde. I'm actually wondering whether Valverde, it wouldn't pay him just to back into this group and conserve some energy, knowing that they want to ride on. They'd save some energy, Sean.
Well, I think the situation we're seeing here at the moment, Movistar are not going to be able to do it alone, because it looked like the gap has grown out. So maybe team orders, the team director say, look, if you knock it back a bit, Marcel Kittel's team are working a lot here. There's a number of them pulling along in a group coming up. If you get together, join forces with them, and then you have 8 men or 10 men to ride on the front, they could close down this gap, because we see Valverde, he is only just a handful of seconds ahead of that group of Kittel.
Exactly, so you may as well cut your losses back into it and just share the responsibility. I think that's what the looks are all about right now. Big check over the shoulder for Plaza, and goodness me, they want assistance. They're asking them to ride up to them, but I think they're going to have to drift back in. And there's discussions going on about exactly that right now, and so I think they may well be absorbed fairly shortly. One of those who did a lot of work there, Ruben Plaza Molina, just getting caught by the Kittel group. They'll be able to get some respite within the pack, but the main bunch are the head of the course, and it includes the jerseys. Belkin rolling to the front now. This is absolutely fascinating, Sean. We thought today was going to be another bit of a sofa ride, but absolutely not. The sprinters are having to work. Depends on how much work they've actually put in, I guess, today, and how fortunate you've been to be a one or other group. This is the Movistar group, but it's been absolutely action-packed, and we haven't even got to the intermediate sprint yet.
Yes, it is action-packed in the last 25-30 kilometers, and it is going to be another difficult day still, with 77.5 kilometers to go, and we have been going for a long time now. So the riders that do not like the conditions we're in at the moment, a little bit of side wind and just pushing all the time, they're really going to suffer. Some riders can just stay in the group and they can, hide pretty well, and if you can do that, well, then you get that little bit of an easier ride, but it's not going to be an easy day for anybody here. And the riders who are chasing out the rear here, the group that we see Marcel Kittel in, they're going to suffer big time, and we could see Ulrika Greenedge were the ones contributing a lot there, so they maybe have Matty Goss. I haven't seen him here appearing on the front, so it looks like that he's also back in that group of Kittel. And up front, Belkin are just putting a lot of men up here, pushing on with Omega Pharma, and the gap is not like it's coming down for the moment, but we can see here now, will they get together here, more of the teams who are in the second group would join up with Valverde. If we get 10-15 riders prepared to ride strong on the front, well, then that's their only chance. But 48 seconds at the moment.
Wow. They came close, and then they were distanced yet again. Movistar are in here and expected not to just back in and take a holiday. Absolutely not. Argo Shimano want their firepower up front, and as Sean was saying, there's a lot of tired legs in that secondary group. This is the lead group at the moment. There was an escape, 6-man escape up the road. They have been caught because the hammer was thrown down by Omega Pharma Quickstep. Once they knew that Kittel was towards the back, they decided to attack, and a split came in the wind. And there's a decent amount of it today, around about 35 kilometres per hour. Pierre Rolland on the left-hand side of your screen picked up the only climb point today, categorised 4, so just the solitary one for him. Peter Sagan, though, is in a reasonably happy place. I think Sagan might be happier actually tomorrow and might just decide to just at least go for the intermediates. We'll see. But today it is about what will, we think, be a sprint finish. Certainly looked like that, absolutely nailed on at the beginning of the day. The question is who's going to be there with 75 kilometres to go. That's still a proper gap. The pace they're going at the moment, Sean, is hovering around about the 50s. It looks like much later on in the day, the rate that they're going.
Well, this is going to mark everybody, and there's a lot of riders here that we're not seeing on the front of the main favourites here. There's riders hanging in. If they keep on riding like this and there's a bit more side wind, well, then there'll be a lot of these riders up here that will lose contact. We can see there the Valverde group now with the Argus riders, Euskaltel as well. They seem to be riding on the front, and Igor Anton, I reckon he hasn't made it, and he's their best place on general classification at 5:48. That is the only hope for Valverde and Kittel, if Euskaltel can get in there and, you know, make that chasing group 15+ riders. Otherwise, it's game over.
Tony Martin hits his individual time trial pace at the front, rolls through. We'll roll off for a moment. Back after this.
Britain's rise to the top of world cycling is complete.
Contador kicks again.
Evans keeps in his wheel. Oh, Chris Froome is going to take the stage win.
Never get bored of winning it. Look at the reaction of those players. Clever ball picking out Kelly Smith. Chance for Kelly Smith! It is going to be tense and exciting. Gazeffert! Oh, what a goal that is!
What an absolutely outstanding performance.
It's a star in the making. Already a national hero. Still a teenager.
Oh, fantastic. What a swimmer. Can't believe it.
The height is superb and the rest of the dive even better.
Good looking cross. Missed by Danilo. Real chance. Goal!
Brazil are the FIFA Youth World Champions.
What? Oh, it's safe. That is a tremendous hit. One of the goals of the tournament so far.
A month of outstanding sport with all the emotions. That's July on Eurosport. The middle week of the 100th Tour de France, and there's something for everybody. For the sprinters in the battle for the green jersey, for the time trialists in the Bay of Mont Saint-Michel, and for the masters of the short, steep climbs on the way to Lyon, before the big climb up Mont Ventoux on Bastille Day. The Tour de France Stage 14, Saint-Pourçain-sur-Sioule to Lyon, tomorrow at 13:45, live on Eurosport.
Argo Shimano, Movistar, some BMC talent, as well as a number from Orica Green Edge, are desperately trying to close a gap at the moment to a head group that essentially just decided to blow this race apart today. In the wind, in the open countryside, they're putting the hurt on, and well, they themselves are going to have a price to pay today. We'll see just how heavy a bill it is by the end, because it's going to be a quick finish, but it couldn't be quicker at the moment, and there's 72.1 kilometres to go. We'll get some average speeds from you in a moment, but goodness me, it's pacey, and the hurt is on just about everybody. It's just that the result will perhaps take some of that pain away for those in the front group. more quickly than it will those behind. It's fascinating, Sean.
Yes, well, it's exciting racing when you get this type of racing, echelons, and you see many groups on the road. It is exciting to watch, but not to be in there unless you're a real good one in the echelons. And we can see the men that are right in the front, Dutch riders, Belgian riders, the big strong men. They can really be powerful here, and you have to ride through in the group. If you're further back, if you go a long way back in the group and you find yourself at the tail end, that's when you get into danger, because you can find yourself getting caught in the wind. And then if you can do that for a number of kilometres, but you're not going to be able to stay there. So the best thing is to try and ride with the group if you're capable of doing that, but easier said than done. And as well, depending on how you're feeling, if you're recovering well, you still feel good, you can do that. But if you're really suffering, there's nothing you can do here, and just go higher and try and hang in as long as possible, and hope the weather changes a bit, the wind directions change a bit, and it will become more of a headwind, and that way they will slow down up front. Otherwise, it's going to be one of these days where you get a lot of punishment right through all day.
You've got to think that Mark Cavendish is very comfortable with this situation, because it was his team that caused that breakdown, or that break apart, the snapping of the peloton. Injected the pace and decided that they were going to instigate the split, and they did a superb job. And looking at Mark Cavendish, he looks reasonably comfortable. I think he's in battle mode, Sean, after yesterday.
Well, Cavendish, he can ride well in the echelons, and we can see him. We have seen him there. He was riding through a bit, but of recent, he is the one. He's just a little bit further back there, sitting at the right side, and it's all about sitting in the group, but also being in the sheltery side of it. There's some teams who move up on the left-hand side direction the riders are travelling, and they have to do that into the wind. But if you stay over the right-hand side, you can get a lot of shelter, get sucked along, and that's what it's about. Spare your energies for the end. But he can do that because it's Omega Pharma, the team who is riding on the front, so they're riding for him, and he's their sprinter for the day.
Well, they've turned out the great and the good, and it's terrific as well to see the school kids screening them on. Pass through all these little hamlets, and it seems that their population just trebles as those who are just off the route come and visit. It's a lovely, lovely party atmosphere. Of course, they get the caravan rolling through earlier on that we were telling you about. It takes sometimes a good sort of 15 minutes for that to actually come by, sometimes as much as half an hour on a slowish day. They'll be racing ahead of them at the moment, the caravan, handing out their goodies. And indeed, a lot of the fans, I'm sure, just come along for the goodies as much as the cycling. And quite a few goodies there are. Well, taking on some goodies. If you missed your turn in the feed zone, they shot through it, Sean. You need to get back to the car as quickly as you can. And David Miller taking on fluids and maybe some gel bars as well. You mustn't miss out.
No, well, you cannot afford to miss out warm conditions, because it's over 30 degrees here today, and as you come through the feed station, the way it was riding today, it's not an easy task to grab the Musette. You can get it wrong, and if that happens, well, then you're going to be in trouble. And to get back to the car as well, we can see in the front group, it's not going to be as easy to go back for the riders. There's not as many riders coming back. There will not be as many riders coming back, because the weight is riding up front at the moment. And if it stays as it is being, very, very close between that chasing group of Kittel and the main peloton out front, the car's not allowed to go through. Well, then the guys up front that miss their drink, they're going to be in difficulty, and they're going to have look to their teammates to try and get through a number of kilometres until late, and hopefully the cars will be allowed to come by.
This looks thin, doesn't it, this group at the moment? Sorry, looking at another monitor, the chase-on group. These are lead group at the moment, but it does look thin behind them, and they're having to do some amazing turns to get back at this lot, who look so much more comfortable. It's a place to be. Well, nothing like winning, and it's now 1 minute and 17. It's getting bigger, this gap, and just watch that clock just continue to spin out. And I think that Quintana is indeed in the good group, if you like, the good place to be up the front. Quintana is going to make big inroads on Valverde, his teammate, today. If this kind of gap holds, struggle, and triumph. Well, not always, unfortunately, and Thibaut Pinot just resting himself, and indeed the course today. Kittel, what price will he pay? Well, it'll be a non-victory today. One can almost be certain, because he's had to do a lot of work himself. You just can't protect that far down the line. There he is, number 197. And Valverde and team. Goodness me, 1 minute and 20 off. We'll take a break. We're back in a moment.
Festina, official timekeeper, Tour de France.
Morocco, the country that travels within you.
Festina, official timekeeper, Tour de France.
Eurosport Player is the Eurosport multi-screen service. With Eurosport Player, watch Eurosport channels live on all your favourite devices through a single subscription. Follow great sporting events live and on demand. Enjoy exclusive content such as 7 tennis courts simultaneously. Eurosport Player, all sports, all emotions, all screens.
For Jonas, the amateur, the time has come. Riding with Chris Froome and Sean Kelly, the time has come to test his limits on the mythical Mont Ventoux. See how he handles it in Eurosport's special series, The Ride, Episode 3, tomorrow at 2200 on Eurosport.
Welcome back. The intermediate sprint is approaching, and so no cadence reduction whatsoever at 60.5 kilometers, so in just under 5 kilometers time they're going to be hitting that line. And let's remind you, Cavendish is here, Sagan's here, Greipel's here, Kittel is not. So at least there is that diminution in the drive for the line that we'll have for you. And it's going to be a day today where the cost is going to be counted not only in terms of time, but also in energy expended, as tomorrow it gets a little bit lumpy. And then the day after, Mont Ventoux. Well, as we said yesterday, it wasn't designed to be easy, this Tour de France. It is the 100th after all, and every single day it seems they've planned something to spice everything up. And so it has proved. Just before we get there, as they go into the 5 kilometer marker, let's just have a brief word with Peter Sagan, shall we?
Peter, the team is continuing to work hard for you. Yes, they're still working hard for me. This is the last flattish stage for me to try and get points for the green jersey. How are you feeling? Quiet? Calm? Yeah, I'm feeling quite calm. Well, that was an in-depth interview, wasn't it, Carlton?
Calm's dangerous when it's him. Mind you, one thing you can say about Peter Sagan is he never seems to flap. Although yesterday in the intermediate sprint, he did have a coming together. I believe it was with Boukemans, who was relegated from that intermediate sprint yesterday. Boukemans, who was in the early break today. And so as we approach that first intermediate sprint of today, the only one, of course, after we've had one King of the Mountains, only category 4 taken by Pierre Rolland, will Peter Sagan have a go again. Of course he will. So will Mark Cavendish. So will André Greipel. Marcel Kittel, unfortunately not. He has been trapped in a secondary group here after a split in the peloton, courtesy of a change of pace by Omega Pharma Quick-Step. That did for the 6 men who were in the escape. It also did for some real quality behind. A mechanical issue for Alejandro Valverde meant his team had to relay back. All bar Quintana went to help him out. They were in no man's land and eventually gave up the ghost and backed into the Kittel chasing group. There they sit at the moment, but unfortunately at 1 minute and 25 seconds down on the men who will contest the intermediate sprint and possibly today run on to contest the sprint at the end without the likes of Marcel Kittel, who has, we remind you, taken 3 stage wins in this year's Tour de France. We believe that Matt Goss is also there, or we haven't had a positive on him just yet. Waiting for that ID. But 62.6 to go, and that tells us that in just 2 kilometres time we're going to have an intermediate sprint. And what does sprint mean? It means points, and what do points means? The prize of a green jersey. Peter Sagan currently on 307, Mark Cavendish on 211, André Greipel on 195, Kittel is not part of this on 177. Alexander Kristoff is here. He's on 157, so it may well be that if he took this intermediate sprint, he'd be level on points with Kittel. So they are going to go for it, and it'll be interesting to see how much they've got left in their legs, Sean, and whether this is a real pile drive for the line, or whether they've used a lot of that energy and are still recouping for the finish ahead.
Well, I think the men who will be making the sprint haven't put in the effort yet, and they have been carried along. Mark Cavendish, Peter Sagan, Greipel, you know, they're all just waiting here, and they will make the sprint. And Sagan, you can be sure he will start, you know, watching Mark Cavendish and just appearing at the front of this group and pick up as much points as possible. If he does not win the sprint, he's not going to be too concerned about it. We see that yesterday because he has a big advantage. But the main thing is to stay close to the main rivals, Cavendish, Greipel. Kittel, he did not really contest the sprint at all yesterday, so he's not, you know, going to miss anything today. I don't think, you know, he had decided, I'm not going to go for the green jersey in this year's Tour. He's concentrating on the stages, and yesterday he did a good job not getting involved in the immediate sprint and then winning the stage, and that makes up for all. So it's going to be again between these 3 riders we have seen in the past number of days. Sagan, Cavendish, Greipel.
And there they are, Sean. Absolutely in line. You've got 2 of the Cannondale riders in their lime green. Then comes Mark Cavendish with his teammates alongside him, but not in line. Then there is Sagan, who is just behind Mark Cavendish, and Cavendish is taking a free ride at the moment with Sabatini just ahead. So Cavendish goes. There is Sagan on his wheel, and of course Greipel at hand, and Fletcher also involved, but Greipel comes through, does he? Looks with this distance to go that Greipel is going to make this, and he does. So they didn't overexert themselves. Greipel denied yesterday, courtesy of his team just getting cramped out towards the curbstones. Down they went. Thankfully they remain unseriously injured and are riding. And Greipel riding into points and taking 20. Mark Cavendish in second place on that intermediate sprint, with Peter Sagan in third place. Lotto Belisol have 5 of their riders wearing skin suits today, so they mean business. And earlier on, Cav meant business as well and ordered the boys to go for it. Hammer went down and up the road they went. Greipel gets 20, Cav 17, Peter Sagan 15. Well, it's about those 3 at the moment, Sean.
Yes, I think it's the same situation. A repeat of yesterday, and you know, Greipel losing out a lot of points yesterday, getting caught up behind the crash, not going down, but really getting slowed down and then never getting back into it again. And when you have us, you know, just at 2.5 kilometers before the finish, you really get knocked off. You have to knock off your speed because of the crash. Then it's so impossible to get back up there. And but he's still contesting for the intermediate sprint points, which is interesting, because I was wondering today, will he be a one that also will say, well, I'm so far off now, I might not be, you know, contesting the intermediate sprints at all. But he is still doing that, and it's nice to see.
It is nice to see. He says he hasn't given up on going for the green jersey. And hardly surprising because, as you know, anything can happen in the Tour de France, especially when you've got so much action still to come. Minute 41 then is the gap to Valverde and Kittel Group. Does not bode well. This gap is just expanding, Sean, and we've got just over an hour remaining at this pace.
No, it's not looking nice at all when you see, you know, once it's a minute and 30, it's a big gap to close down. They have, you know, more than that, and it's not looking good, because now when you get into this 59 kilometers to go, I think up front they're going to continue on. It doesn't look like it's going to slow down at all, and unfortunately for Valverde, he just had a mechanical problem at the wrong time when the race was really going at full bore.
And I think that's the point. You can have one of those at any time. Let's not forget, this race far from over. So is this stage. We'll take a break and we'll be back with you in a few moments.
Years of supporting the Tour de France. And not a single breakdown.
Skoda. Simply clever. Festina, official timekeeper, Tour de France.
Welcome back. 56.8 kilometers to go. A minute and 15 is the gap. So it's closed just a tad. Oh dear. They're tiring up front as well, Sean, and I'm not surprised.
Yes, well, we can see this. Belkin is pushing on here, but a little bit of discussion at the moment, looking about, and I think it might have slowed a little bit. We can see 1:16 for that group of Valverde, so they have closed a little bit, but again, they will be just waiting to see if it comes down to 40 seconds. Maybe they will start pushing on again up front. But I don't think it's really because Valverde is back there that Belkin is pushing. They were riding, you know, well before that, and they just have continued on.
Let's just check in on Team Sky, shall we, with our last report of the day, Mike?
Well, yes, they have really revolutionised the way teams are set up. Here's some more enlightening thoughts coming from some of them.
You can't win without a strong team.
Well, I think it starts with recruitment. You know, I think you obviously have to have the right riders in the first place to be able to be competitive. We know how we're going to try and win the race. Then I think that helps everybody and optimises our chance of actually doing it. You know, so we work quite hard on that.
Well, last year it was Bradley Wiggins. Now Sir Bradley Wiggins. Will it be Chris Froome this year?
Team Sky having won the Tour last year. There's a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure in that regard. But it is something I've had to work a lot at. Having never won a Grand Tour before, I don't like to see myself as a favourite, but I can understand why people would say that I'm the favourite, having won most of the build-up races to the Tour.
But it's never plain sailing, is it? Remember stage 9 in the Pyrenees, when Froome was left behind, Peter Kenyon crashing, the rest just left down the road?
Yeah, we are. We've discussed it, of course we have, and I think we've learned some lessons, and I think there's some valuable lessons to be learned that we'll take into the rest of the race.
Well, it doesn't end just there, does it? Remember yesterday, Edvald Boasson Hagen was forced to pull out, leaving Froome now with only 6 men left to help him. Paris, Carlton, is still a long way off.
It is a long way to Paris, and today, well, it's still a long way to the line at this pace. 54.5 kilometres to go. We've dealt with our only climb of the day. It was a very modest category 4. Roland took that point. We've dealt with the intermediate sprint. Greipel victorious in that one, sharing the duties across the line there with Sagan and of course Mark Cavendish. So they're up for it. It was Mark Cavendish's team that hit the front and caused a split today. And as we come through Isdun, it really has made a huge gap. It's down to 1:01. Now, we've seen some discussions by Omega Pharma Quickstep amongst themselves, and indeed just the odd word just being cast over to Belkin. And it was Tony Martin that was asked, I think, by Sylvain Chavanel, do you want to take the front? Can you do it? Can you do much more of this? Tony Martin, of course, the ultimate time trialist, took the individual time trial with such aplomb in to Mont Saint-Michel, and he shook his head and said, no, enough. And I'm not surprised. And since that moment, the gap has been coming down. I think a job has been done today on the sprinters who are trapped behind, including Matt Goss and Marcel Kittel, and I think that has made the pace just perhaps ease back a bit. We'll see. This happened earlier, let's not forget, when they came into town, and because of the protection offered up from the wind to the chasers, that gap reduced, and you feel that maybe they'll just push on again once they get back out into open countryside, which will come. And it's a heartbreaker, Sean, if you're constantly being hit like this, and in fact the job is just not one quantifiable effort, that there are a number of tasks being laid before you, because the men up front just keep hitting, recovering, hit again, recover, hit again, recover. It might be what we're seeing now.
Yes, well, it's a difficult position if you're chasing. If you're in the group of Valverde, Kittel, and you're a teammate there, and you know you're just giving it everything, and you do that for 25 kilometers, and you still. Here we see a bike change for Roland, a wheel change for Roland here at the moment. So he's going to again. You know, it's a difficult moment for everybody up front. The team cars we have seen, that some of them have been allowed up. I'm not sure if they're all here at the moment because they allow so many through, as we can see. Yeah, the team car of Pierre Roland coming up here, but he is changing very quickly to get back into this group, because we did see with Valverde, you know, you lose contact with the main group and there's not a lot of cars. Luckily for Pierre Roland here, there's quite a few team cars after being allowed through, so he'll be able to get back into the cavalcade quickly, hopefully, and get back into that leading group. But if you're in the chasing group and it's always at, you know, a minute and 15, and you're just chasing, and it doesn't seem to be coming down, well, then you start to lose heart. It will be interesting now to see, will it continue to drop, because 48 seconds at the moment, it looks like that, yeah, the group of Valverde is closing a bit, but again, we see guessing here from Belkin pushing on, but Omega Pharma, they were, you know, talking with each other, what was the tactic, maybe, okay, we knock it off for a bit, and we see what Valverde's group are doing, how close they can get, not be surprised again if they start upping it if he closes down.
That was a whistle by a red helmeted commissaire saying get off the car. If you're going to make an adjustment to that rear brake, you should have done it by now. And I think maybe a minor fine might well be coming its way to Pierre Roland later on. We'll see. 51.9 kilometers to go, 45 seconds now, and holding steady. Remember what we said, as soon as they come out of this town, they'll be into the open countryside again. It may well be that those up front decide to push on again and maintain this split. It's absolutely fascinating today, and to be honest, I did not think it was going to be so, but it is glorious riding in open countryside. It's as dramatic as more dramatic landscapes can offer, and look at this. They're even stretching this group in terms of pace, and the hammer's going back down again, Sean.
Yes, it is pushing on, and we can see at the tail end of the group there where Belkin and Omega Farmer are pushing on. A lot of riders starting to get into difficulty. We can see gaps appearing. I think we will see more of that as we go further onto the stage, and we can see Pierre Rolland here, you know, making a very quick change, but still he has quite a bit to make up here, and the way it's riding up front, it is going to be very difficult for them to make it back in. And that could be advantage to Valverde Kittle's group if we see the Europcar riders getting pulled back, roll on by that group of Valverde. Well, then there'll be more of them want to ride as well.
Wow, it's 1 minute and 5 now back to the group with Kittel. And so ignore that 45 seconds apparently, according to Race Radio, and it's all breaking down, Sean.
Yes, it all splitting here. We can see that is the group of Valverde who's at 45 seconds, catching up with the group of the three riders from Europcar, Pierre Rolland. Kittels have lost a bit of ground there. We could see as they came through the last